I never imagined I'd end up in a situation like this. If someone had told me a year ago that I'd jeopardize our friendship over a couple of hours of intimate closeness, I would have just laughed it off. But now here I am, with a sense of remorse gnawing at me from the depths of my soul and thoughts about what happened last night. My closest buddy, David, and I became friends back in our university days. We shared everything: classes, careers, parties, even secret crushes on classmates. When he met Emily, I thought she was the perfect match for him, and my initial jealousy toward their idyllic relationship soon turned into genuine admiration and happiness for my friend. We often hung out as a trio, me, David, and Emily. They seemed like the perfect team, always together, always in sync. I respected Emily as a friend, but I admitted to myself, she attracted me far more than she should have. Then 4 months ago, David and Emily broke up. The reasons were mundane. We grew apart. No future. Disagreements. I heard these phrases from David over the phone when he'd call me in the middle of the night after another fight with Emily. He was devastated, and I tried to be a support, like a loyal friend. I figured that after the breakup, things would simplify. David would get over the pain, Emily and I would keep friendly relations, and life would go on. But I overlooked how quickly shared moments and closeness can turn friendship into temptation. A couple of weeks after their split, Emily started reaching out to me more often. At first, it was innocent hangouts, tea at a cafe, walks in the park, talks about David, her feelings, her new phase in life. She laughed, complained, asked for advice. And I responded, encouraged, maybe too eagerly if I'm honest. One evening, we stopped by a pub after work. We chatted, joked, reminisced about old times. I noticed how her gaze lingered on me, how her hand casually brushed mine, how she giggled too close. I tried to push the thoughts away, telling myself, not now, not like this. But an inner impulse whispered, seize the chance, it's not betrayal, it's an opportunity. And that chance arrived. We left the pub and headed to her apartment, supposedly to continue the conversation. The room was quiet, with only the dim light of a floor lamp and soft music. We settled on the sofa, and the talk drifted to more intimate topics, her experiences, my concern, references to David. I felt her moving closer. I knew we were crossing a line, but in that moment reason shut off. And it happened. A few hours of desire, awkwardness, and yet tender connection. I looked into her eyes, felt her breath, and realized this would forever change my bond with David. In the morning, I sat in Emily's kitchen with a cup of tea, my mind in chaos. We were silent, both realizing this was more than a casual slip-up. I thought about David, our brotherhood, the trust I'd just broken. Emily seemed confused, but content. We should talk about this, I said, feeling a lump rising in my throat. I know, she whispered. I don't know how this will affect David, but I feel something too. From that moment, everything changed. Every conversation was a tangle of attraction and guilt. Every glance was a test of who would back down first or confess to David. I knew we were balancing on the edge of a cliff, and the longer it dragged on, the sharper the blow when it all came out. The days after that night turned into agonizing waiting. I went to the office, met with friends, pretended everything was normal, but inside, remorse boiled. I understood that any action of mine could shatter what I'd carefully built with David over the years. Emily and I tried to act casually. We talked about her, her feelings after the breakup, shared moments with David. Sometimes our conversations ended too intimately, sometimes in icy silence. We both knew we'd crossed an invisible barrier, but neither could break the magnetic pull drawing us together. One evening, David called me. His voice trembled, which was unusual. Hey, let's meet. I want to talk about Emily. I felt a stab in my chest. What had he found out? Did he suspect something? I tried to sound steady. Sure, buddy, where should we meet? We met at the same pub where our saga with Emily began. David looked exhausted and downcast. He sat across from me, his eyes full of worry. I don't know how to say this, he started. I've noticed Emily, she's changed, she's different, and I'm afraid I missed something important. I felt the lump rising in my throat. Should I come clean now? Silence seemed safer, but the deception was suffocating me from inside. David, I said cautiously, she didn't cheat on you, but... There are nuances that are better mentioned carefully. He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. You know something, don't you? I felt the ground slipping away. Confessing now meant losing the friendship forever. Staying silent meant carrying this burden eternally. In that moment, I realized that Emily and I hadn't just betrayed David. We'd betrayed ourselves, our principles, our inner compass. The following weeks turned into a nightmare. Every time David mentioned Emily, I felt shame. When I saw her, the attraction still burned bright, but alongside it grew remorse. Every glance, every touch was a reminder that we were breaking someone's life. Emily tried to rationalize it with phrases like, David and I aren't together anymore. We have the right to be true to ourselves. I countered similarly. But truth comes at a cost. We can't just erase the history. We tried to avoid David, but it became almost impossible. He saw us together at the office, caught our glances, laughter, accidental touches. His suspicions built like an avalanche. I sensed that every day could be the end for our secret affair. One day, David approached me in the parking lot. I don't know what's going on between you two, but I see it. If there's something, come clean. I stayed silent. The words stuck in my throat. I couldn't shatter his life all at once, but hiding the truth every day was like living with a dagger in my chest. Inside me, a sense of collapse grew. I realized that what Emily and I had started didn't promise a happy ending, and even if we tried to keep the secret, the ethical price was too high. Weeks of silence pushed me to the limit. Every call from David, every sudden appearance at the office or pub reminded me that the secret wouldn't last long. I saw how his gaze searched for answers, how he noticed the smallest details, our hidden intimacy, quiet glances, barely perceptible smiles. One Friday evening, David called suddenly. His tone was icy. I want to meet today, no excuses. I felt my heart freeze. I knew this evening would change everything. We met at the old coffee shop where we once shared ambitions, ideas, and just chatted about life. David sat across from me, his eyes sparking with a mix of hurt and agitation. There's something going on between you and Emily, he said directly. I see it, don't try to hide it. I tried to compose myself, but the words stuck in my throat. A deep breath, a pause, and I spoke. David, I don't know where to start. What you're seeing. It's real, but the motives are more complicated than they seem. His gaze sharpened. More complicated? You mean you too? Yes, I exhaled. Emily and I got close, I can't deny it. Silence fell instantly. We sat face to face, and time seemed to freeze. David clenched his fists, trying to control his emotions. After everything I've done for you, after how I cared for Emily, looked after her, you betrayed me. It wasn't planned, I started, but realized any words sounded like excuses. David stood up, his eyes blazing with rage. You've ruined everything we had, you've ruined our bond, and Emily, she just let this happen. She was confused too, I replied quietly. We both were, it was a mistake, but we can't undo what's done. He fell silent, as if processing what he'd heard. Then he turned sharply and left the coffee shop, leaving me with a bitter taste. The next day at the office, tension hung in the air. David avoided Emily and me, but his glances still landed on us. I felt the trust we'd built over years melting away before my eyes. Emily tried to calm me. It'll work out if we're careful. We can be a couple, but it needs time. I understood her words, but inner unease wouldn't let go. Every step, every gesture was like dancing with fire. I saw how David slowly pieced things together, how his doubts turned into certainty. One evening, heading back to the apartment, I got a text from David. We need to talk. Tomorrow, don't dodge. I knew tomorrow would be pivotal. The next morning was oppressive. I felt every action was labored, as if a weight of the unspoken hung on my shoulders. David set the meeting at the same coffee shop where we once dissected our life plans. I arrived first, trying to gather myself, but my heart pounded like a hammer. Minutes later, David entered, his eyes burning with a mix of hurt and anger. He sat across, saying nothing at first, just sighing deeply as if preparing to unload everything at once. Go on, he finally said, barely holding his tone. Why did you do it, after 6 years of friendship, after everything I've done for you? Why? I felt the words stick in my throat. How many times I'd tried to justify, explain, and now I realized no words could soften the pain I'd caused. David, it wasn't planned, I said carefully. It happened. Emily and we both got confused. It was a mistake, and I truly regret it. He leaned back sharply. A mistake? You call this a mistake? You've ruined my life, you've ruined our bond, and Emily, she just allowed it. I began. She was in turmoil too. She didn't mean to hurt you. Silence. David clenched his fists, and I saw the tension building in him. His eyes sparked, and his voice carried pain that was impossible to ignore. I trusted both of you, he shouted. I let you into our life, knowing I could rely on your honesty and you. I know, I interrupted, and I can't change what happened, but I can be honest now. He stood up abruptly, slamming his fist on the table. The cups trembled, tea spilled across the tablecloth. You don't get it, you don't get how this feels. 6 years of friendship, support through all hardships, and you just betrayed. David, I raised my hands, feeling despair. I didn't want this, but we both made a mistake. A mistake? This is way more than a mistake. His voice trembled with rage and pain. You betrayed me, you betrayed yourself. In that moment, I realized no explanations would restore the lost trust. Everything we'd built over years was destroyed. We sat face to face, two people connected by memories, now on opposite sides of the barricade. After that conversation, a silence fell that words couldn't break. David left first, leaving me with a vacuum inside. Emily tried to encourage me at the apartment, but I felt an invisible crack between us. I saw her gaze, full of hesitation and fear, but I felt disappointment too, not in her but in myself. At the office, interactions with David became distant. He avoided me, and every glance was laced with reproach. I realized we were no longer friends. We'd become strangers who were once closer than family. Emily tried to stay close, but the tension between us grew. Every touch, every word reminded us of the past. And I understood. The echo of our actions would chase us for a long time. A couple of months passed after the confrontation at the coffee shop. David completely ignored me. Even at work meetings, we didn't exchange words. I felt an emptiness that gradually devoured me from inside. Every day was a reminder that I'd destroyed not just the friendship, but a part of myself. Emily tried to maintain the relationship, but there was no longer that ease and trust between us. We lived under one roof, but like in parallel realities. Her glances and smiles seemed forced, and conversations strained. I realized I'd done the unthinkable, destroyed the balance we'd built over years. At the office, the atmosphere changed too. Colleagues and friends who once saw me as part of the team started distancing themselves. Rumors about me sleeping with a friend's ex spread like wildfire. People treated me with caution and veiled contempt. I felt like a pariah, even though outwardly everything remained the same. One night, sitting in the empty apartment, I picked up my phone and scrolled through old photos with David. We laughed, planned, shared secrets. Every memory now felt like a stab of conscience. I understood that no excuses could erase this. Emily approached and sat beside me. I see you're struggling, she whispered, but we're not who we used to be. I know, I replied, holding back tears, and it scares me to think about the future. Maybe we just need a break, she suggested, but I'm not sure we can rebuild what's lost. I nodded, realizing an insurmountable abyss had grown between us. The feeling that was once our stronghold had turned into a source of torment. The next day, I decided to meet David again, even knowing it might finally destroy the remnants of our bond. We met in the park where we used to walk often. He sat across, his gaze full of icy resolve. I want you to know, he said, that I can't be in your life anymore. I'm letting go but not forgetting. I felt tears welling up. I understand, and I'm sorry, I said quietly. It was my fault and I'll accept the consequences. We parted, knowing there was no going back. The bond that seemed unbreakable was destroyed forever. A couple of months passed. Emily and I continued to coexist, but our relationship was never the same. We learned to cope, but the joy and trust were gone irrevocably. Every day was a reminder of how one choice can upend everything: friendship, attraction, and self-respect. I often thought of David and our old conversations. Sometimes it seemed I should have acted differently, found the strength to resist temptation. But reality was harsh. History can't be rewritten, and we're left to live with the echo. And so, sitting in the empty apartment one evening, I grasped one bitter truth. Betrayal leaves scars not only on those you've let down, but on yourself as well.